Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'm bringing you something that is very avant-garde sort of video making, something that I don't think anybody's ever thought of doing before, and that's going to be a tier list, but not any kind of tier list. This is the Rate Your Music Top 100 Albums tier list. Rate Your Music, for anyone who doesn't know, is a community-driven music rating website that has a lot of influence on the online discussion of music and terminally online people in real life. It can be a very handy tool for discovering new music and genres that you like, but it can also be a scourge in the way that it creates a lot of groupthink opinions on a lot of albums. And while I would take an RYM over a Pitchfork or a Rolling Stone any day of the week, their top 100 is interesting. We're going to be seeing where they should be, where they really lie. Should they be in that top 100, or are they just a disgusting disgrace for even being mentioned in the conversation? Based on my opinions. Starting off at the bottom here, we have What Are You Doing Here? An album that is disgraceful to be present on anybody's top 100 albums list, in my opinion. Next up, we got That's Nice Honey, Now Go Back to Bed. This is if your partner woke up in the middle of the night and said, so and so album is top 100 of all time. And it's like, not so off base. It's not a bad album, but you're also like, that's nice. That's nice that you think that. Then we got Dece. It's Dece. Then Great, but not the tops. A really solid kind of album that just isn't top 100 material. Then you got Classic. That is like, if someone else is saying this is in their top 100, I'm not going to argue very much because it's a classic. It's everyone knows it. Everyone loves it. It's classic. And then, of course, goated top 100 material. The albums that should be on any top 100 albums list. And if they're not, then what are you doing? And you're making me mad, and I'm going to post about it on Rate Your Music. All right, we're kicking off this list strong. We're starting off with Charles Mingus, The Black Saint and the Sinner Lady. This is an all-time favorite jazz album of mine. This is just one of my favorite albums of all time. This is such an experience. I mean, you can hardly find a better way to spend 40 minutes than listening to Black Saint and the Sinner Lady. Also, album cover goes hard as hell. Nas, Illmatic, all-time classic hip-hop album. One of the greatest of all time. It's pretty hard to argue that. I'm going to slap it up here in the classic area because it is a total classic. Hip-hop would be different without it. Revolver by the Beatles. Not one of my favorite Beatles albums. I'm going to say great, but not the tops. I know there's a lot of Revolver heads out there, but that ain't me, Chief. The Velvet Underground and Nico. Not my favorite of theirs, but this is an incredible album. It's a landmark. It's weird. It's experimental, but it's also very nice at sometimes and pleasant to listen to. And just for the time it came out in the '60s, like nothing sounded like them at the time. It's a classic. Godspeed You Black Emperor, raise your skinny fists like antennas to heaven. Godspeed is definitely a very classic band at this point that gets a ton of respect, and I have plenty of respect for them. I find a lot of enjoyment out of their music. I'm not the warmest when it comes to certain post-rock classics. I would say for Skinny Fists, I'm gonna throw that in Dece. It's Dece. I like it just fine. A love supreme, a love supreme. Goated, top 100, obviously. The only shame about this album being in the top 100, and usually it's one of the two jazz albums in any given top 100 albums list, is that it's the only Coltrane that people typically will talk about. There's a lot of his that are just ultra classic. Love Supreme, maybe my favorite of his. Fantastic. Portishead, Dummy. I had no idea what this genre was when I first heard this album. I just thought it was a cool cover and I listened to it. This album is a vibe to end all vibes. Driving at night and listening to Dummy by Portishead, it's like you're in your own movie in your head. I'm gonna say I'm gonna throw that in classic. That's an ultra classic right there. Animals by Pink Floyd. I'm gonna throw this in top 100. Floyd definitely gets no shortage of love. Uh, the internet and elsewhere, and by all human history, they get no shortage of love. But I do love Pink Floyd. Animals is my favorite one of theirs. So yeah, that's gonna catch a top 100 spot from me, Chief. Enter the Wu Tang by the Wu Tang Clan. That's a goated one. I mean, it's like the early birth of hardcore hip hop. It's one of the best East Coast hip hop albums, just one of the best hip hop albums of all time. And not to mention all the branching off that the members would do to create their own classics in the genre, one of which we'll see here later, but definitely top 100 material. You're an idiot if you're not putting that in the top 100. Spiderland by Slint. This album, I want to love. I want to love it really, really hard. And every so often, every year or so, I come back and I listen because I want to say, I get it now. I understand. I know why people love it so much. And for me personally, I think it's nice. It's fine. I don't dislike it, but the hype passes me over, bro. Passes me over big time. The College Dropout by Kanye West. The debut Kanye album. There is a ton of Kanye representation in this top 100. I think you could honestly say too much. I think there's three. There's at least two. Um, and Kanye's got his classics, but I think one would be plenty. But if you're going to pick one, College Dropout would be one of them to pick. And I would probably put College Dropout around. Ooh, it's not really my favorite Kanye, but it's close to it. I'm going to say great, but not the tops. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. This is a classic top 100 sort of album that you'll see on every list that gets talked about endlessly. And you know what? It's a real good album. I really enjoy it. I've heard it on many a sunny day. I'm going to say Deece. I like it. It's good. The Money Store, Death Grips. Oh, epic Death Grips. The Money Store by Death Grips. This is definitely a online favorite of 2010s hip hop. This is some Zoomer core, some might say. And I'm going to say, then I'm in that core, baby, because this is a great album. Top 100 of all time, maybe a bit bold, but I love The Money Store. It's a great album. It's a fun listen. It's intense. It's wonderful. It's a repeat in rotation. Um, Disintegration by The Cure. Now, this is not the only Cure album on here. I think if you're going with a Cure album, this is going to be the one you should put on here. Um, they're good. I respect The Cure. It's just like, I don't know, bro. It's not really my vibe. I like some gothic rock, but it's not like my favorite thing. I would say it's decent. It's decent. No disrespect, but it's not even a personal favorite, honestly. Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. Classic cover, classic band, sad boy classic, big sad boy classic. What can you say? But it's great. Love me some Joy Division. But New Order, better. No New Order on this list either, unfortunately. Long Season. Fishman's Long Season. Fishman's had such a great run in the 90s. Great catalog. I love to see them getting the love that they're getting. Long Season, personally, is a ultra classic for me. I love this album to death. This would be absolutely in a top 100, in my opinion, in a personal top 100. In the Airplane Over the Sea, that's also going to go right up there. These two are such internet core, favorites, but they are certainly personal favorites of mine. In the Airplane Over the Sea, it's probably my favorite indie album of all time, handily. Souvlaki by Slowdive. This is an OG shoegaze classic from the early days, and I think this is one of the best personally. I'm not the biggest shoegaze guy, but this is definitely sunset music. I'm going to throw that in the great category. Let's keep on that, because I also think this here, Cocteau Twins, Heaven in Las Vegas, this is sunset music through and through. This is taking a walk on a coastal shore, right at the when the sun is peeking right over the coast. It's wonderful. It's like you're in a dream when you're listening to this album. Let's just knock them all out at once. This is I find this album to be a little bit overrated. I like it. I think it's loud, it's abrasive. It also has a dreamy quality to it, but in a harsher way than the other two. But I don't know. This thing just like runs smooth on my ears after I've been listening to it for halfway through the album, I want to say. I come back to it and I like it a little more every time, but it's not a personal favorite. Björk Homogenic. This is widely considered her trip hop album. She's a woman of many talents and many genres. It's great. I would say it's as far as a trip hop album goes. I don't think I like it as much as I like Dummy, but it's still great. It's such a great album. And you know what? While we got that there, let's pull up Vespertine by Björk. I'm gonna put it right next to Homogenic. I think it's a great album. It's entirely unique. It's very artistic. It's a great listen. I would say it's just not as much of a personal favorite. Um, I would just say that it's about on the same level of enjoyment of Homogenic. I'd say either two could peak as my favorite Björk album. Let's go for Low by David Bowie. David Bowie is one of the artists of all time. I really enjoy David Bowie's music. Um, yeah, I don't know. He's great. What are you gonna say? I, it's great. It's not my favorite. Low is not my favorite Bowie record, but it's definitely one of his best. So I'll give him that. You know what? Let's go. Let's go. Ziggy. Ziggy's classic. Ziggy's super classic. Station to Station Peaks is my favorite of his, but Ziggy is like ultra classic. You can't fuck with it. I mean, everybody loves Ziggy Stardust. It's iconic. Then we got Black Star here. Now this is a bit of a hot take, but I think three Bowie albums is more than enough for a top 100. I think we could go for two, and it could probably be just Low and Ziggy. Now, this was a unique album that came out of the unique time right before Bowie's death, and the album addresses his death. It's a really good listen. It's a really good album. But I would say, oh, there's some great songs on there, but if I'm gonna pretend like I can't pretend like it's as good as Ziggy or Low or Heroes or even especially Station to Station. So I'm gonna say Black Star, Deece. It's Deece, man. It's good. It's Deece. It's fine. Atrocity Exhibition by Danny Brown. This is a fucking modern classic right here, man. This is one of the greatest hip hop albums of the 2010s right here. Danny Brown's one of the greatest rappers of the 2010s. Absolutely fucking classic. The Smiths, The Queen is Dead. Not the biggest Smiths fan. Gonna throw it out right there. This Charming Man, all-time classic. And, I find their music very enjoyable, but it's not one of my favorites. Yeah, The Smiths, Deece. Pink Moon by Nick Drake. Pink Moon is a wonderful little album. It's so quiet. It's so tiny sounding. Like he's just playing in the corner of the room. I'm not sure personally if this would be goated top 100 or just classic. I'm gonna put it in classic for now. I love Pink Moon, and I'm really coming around to it nowadays. But it's super classic. Teetering on top 100 material. I wouldn't scoff if Pink Moon's in the top 100. Certainly not upset by it. Blonde by Frank Ocean. I like Blonde. It's not totally my vibe, I'm not gonna lie. Channel Orange, I think I like a little bit more. Blonde is still really solid, but not a personal favorite of mine. I'm gonna say Blonde is Deece. Is Deece. Daft Punk Discovery. All right, so funny story about this. I listened to this album, and it didn't make a big impression on me at all. I didn't really like it very much. And then a couple years later, I was like, you know what? Let me give Daft Punk another try. Let me go to a different album of theirs. And I was listening, and I got about halfway through the album, and then I realized, oh, this is the same one that I listened to before. I didn't realize it until halfway through. So, needless to say, Daft Punk is a very in one ear, out the other sort of artist for me. People love them, and that's fine, but they are not that group for me. They are not that artist. Honestly, I'm going to throw him down in the what are you doing here? Because I enjoyed Spiderland more than I enjoy Daft Punk. Because it takes fewer listens for me to realize that I don't vibe with Daft Punk at all. Um, Another electronic classic, Selected Ambient Works by Aphex Twin. Um, this is great. Everything that makes this album so great and entertaining is very apparent. It's very right there on the surface. Um, I need to dive in deeper with more Aphex Twin. I've only heard a few of his records, but I mean, it's a great album. Super classic, super classics. Doolittle by the Pixies. 80s alternative, I'm a little picky with it. Alternative rock in general, I'm pretty picky with it. The Pixies are definitely on the good side of that. Is this one of my favorite rock records of the 80s? No. Are the Pixies one of my favorite groups? No. But if you're putting on Doolittle by the Pixies, I'm not going to be complaining at all or upset. Let's get some metal in here, huh? Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. Let's get a little metal in here, okay? Because if there's a genre that is underrepresented on most top 100 album lists, it's gonna be metal or jazz, to be honest. But metal especially, all you ever see is Metallica and Black Sabbath. But for good reason. And Master of Reality, you see it for good reason. Now, with all that being said, Master of Reality is not one of my favorite Black Sabbath records. It's a great record. It's like half a masterpiece. But there's like at least 5 other Sabbath records I like better than this one. So I'd say great, but not the tops, Into the Void, one of my favorites of theirs. But generally, I just like many of their others way too much. And one of those is Paranoid. Paranoid is like the album that is always pointed to as a classic metal album. And it is for a good reason. Paranoid is that bitch. It's still so fresh and enjoyable to listen to this very day. I never get tired of this album. Front to back, there's no misses on this. It's like one of the only all killer no fillers the band made, and it's peak performance. Swans, soundtracks for the blind. Swans, I like Swans. I have to be in a very specific mood to like Swans. That being said, this is not one of my favorites of theirs. The 4 long songs on this album are incredible. Some of their best stuff they ever done. The rest of the album is just okay to me. I think it's too long. It's way too long. Does not need to be as long as it is. For me personally, it's Days. It's Days. It's one of those ultra classics that I'll probably listen to once or twice in my entire life and then never come back to. I think that's a good through line for the entire Dees category. I'll listen to it once or twice because it's considered a classic, and I like it, but I don't connect with it enough on a personal level to continually re-listen to it. Let's bring the Beatles back in here, huh? The White Album. I think at one time it was my favorite Beatles album, just because it's so all over the place and such a fun experience to listen to, even if it's wildly inconsistent as an album. I think it's not a hot take to say it's a little too long, and there's definitely biz that could be cut from this schniz, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw it. I'm gonna say great. I probably like it a little more than Revolver, but not classic status for me personally, just because I like other Beatles albums more. Let's take this one for example, Sgt. Pepper. Sgt. Pepper is such a delight. It's one of the most fun albums of all time. One of the first concept records. It's ultra classic for a reason. I'm kind of a basic bitch with my Beatles picks because I think most of the time I'm going with the consensus of what is considered the best. I really think is their best too. I'm gonna put it in classic though because it's not my favorite Beatles album. Wherever that one is. Oh, right here. Abbey Road, S tier, goated. Yeah, it's the basic one. Yeah, it's the one everybody fucking knows. It's because it's literally the best, man. It's so good. The first half of the album is just such a great little mix of songs. The whole album is a great little mix of songs, and the medley at the end is just incredible. It gets me every time. It hits so hard. It's the only Beatles album that is like consistently making my hairs stand on end the whole time I'm listening to them. Led Zeppelin 4. I love Zeppelin. Zeppelin's ultra classic. One of the greatest rock bands of their time. Wholeheartedly. 4, I don't even think it's a top 3 Zeppelin pick for me. Um, that's a hot take, but yeah, I would not if I'm going for the Zeppelin pick, which I believe this is the only one on here. It's not going to be four. You cannot tell me, you can't say four is a perfect masterpiece, and then you're going to say you're going to put four sticks on your best of Zeppelin playlist. All right, Misty Mountain Hop. I'm not saying those songs are bad, but we're talking this is one of the greatest 100 albums of all time, and like there's at least two songs that you can just skip. Sorry, bro. It's great. I love it. There's masterpiece material there, but it's not as good as other Zeppelin albums. Oh, hey, make that four Bowie albums. I didn't even realize Station to Station was on here. Yeah, this is super classic. This is my favorite Bowie record. I don't know. I don't think it peaks to top 100 personally. Bowie's one of those where like he's got five albums I think are really, really, really great, but none that are like masterpiece for me personally. What's going on? You would know what's going on if you didn't think I was going to put this as the top tier. Obviously, it's top tier. It's so obvious. You know what? Get the other obvious one. Obviously. Songs in the Key of Life. Obviously, top 100 material. If these two albums, forget everything else, if these two albums are not in the top 100 in your mind, you're listening wrong. Fucking the Naked Lady album, Electric Ladyland. Very, very classy of them to include the original cover, okay? Or the US cover, whatever this is. But this is a great album. Hendrix is one of the greatest artists of all time. You gotta love it. It's classic. It's super classic. All three of his studio albums, they're all super classic. I mean, replace that with either of his other two. But it's fantastic. The Fishman's 12/28/98, 12, you know it's a date. Their live record. Their live record is amazing. It's amazing. It's like a dream. It's like a dream album that I didn't think really existed until I saw it on a list like this, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't the only one that heard that. I wasn't the only one that thought about that. Oh, this was real. That's great. Now, this is going to seem antithetical to everything I just said, but I'm going to throw it in the classic. I know Long Season's up at the top, and the live version of Long Season on here is probably as good, if not better, than that. But it's not an album I listen to all the time. It's very long. It's a very long experience. It's a very selected experience, but it's classic. Hounds of Love by Kate Bush. You know, Kate Bush, classic. Love her. Need to spend more time with Kate Bush. Honestly, I've only heard a few and only a few times. It's great. It's great, but it's not the tops for me personally. Hounds of Love has a little bit of Remain in Light syndrome, where the first half of the album is just pure concentrated gold, and the second half is way more out there and gets way more experimental, and not even in a bad way. But it just the two halves contrast each other so harshly that I can't say it's a perfect listening experience for me. And with that being said, Remain in Light, amazing. The first half of this album is fucking amazing. The first half of this album is the best thing they ever did, period. And I really like the second half too, but I think they're just contrasting in a way that I don't think makes for a wholly consistent experience. It kind of has the thing that Bowie's albums from the 70s working with Brian Eno have, where the first half is a Talking Heads record and the second half is a Brian Eno record, or same thing with David Bowie. I still like the second half. It's great. I'm going to throw it in classic. It's not my favorite Talking Heads. Classic. Red, King Crimson. All right, let's just do it. Let's just get it. Let's get it out there. Let's get it out there. We're throwing both up there right now. If you don't think King Crimson is one of the greatest bands of all time, they are that bitch. They deserve to be everywhere in the top 100. This is the only band that I'm pissed that there aren't 3 of their albums. You got 3 for Floyd, Radiohead. You got 4 for Bowie, 4 for the Beatles. We only got 2 Crimso. And 2 is a lot for a top 100. And you could always have more. Give me My Lark's Tongues and Aspic. Either or by Elliott Smith. This is a really good album. I thought this album, I've heard this for the first time recently, and I thought it was going to be a lot more sad than it was. It's actually quite bright during some songs. Overall, really enjoyable listen. It's great. Super great. Uh, Friggin' Good Kid, Mad City. One of the greatest hip hop albums of all time, especially speaking of the 2010s. Kendrick is this generation's Radiohead, Pink Floyd, what have you. He is the quintessential artist balancing art with popularity. He's just creating some of the greatest, most vital albums that I'm fortunate enough to get to live through to see them coming out. That being said, Good Kid, Mad City going into classic is only because T-Pab is going into the goated top 100 material. I mean, obviously, all right. It's so good. It's incredible. It's one of the greatest albums of all time, hands down. Floyd. Let's grab the other Floyd. Dark Side is also going to be top 100 for me. I know. It's that one. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. I am a part of everybody, and I also know it and love it. Wish You Were Here. Throw all the Floyd up there. Wish You Were Here. Honestly, this seems crazy for having the other two in top 100. I'll throw it down in great, but not the tops. Not one of my favorite Floyd albums. It is great. It's one of the classics, but I just don't love it nearly as much as Animals or Dark Side. Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. It's along with Love Supreme. It's the one jazz album you're always going to see in top 100 lists, and for good reason. I only wish that they included more. Bitches Brew is always not included because they think Kind of Blue is enough. But Kind of Blue is beautiful. It's delicate. It's emotional. It is most people's introduction to jazz. And I think it's a great introduction album, but it's a great, well-seasoned album too. If you listen to this first getting into jazz and haven't come back to it in a long time, spend a little more time with it. It really deserves it. It's not just top 100 fodder. And let's throw the rest of Miles in here while we're at it. We got In a Silent Way, incredible, revolutionary album for its time. The performances on here are just incredible. John McLaughlin comes in the mix on here, and he's amazing. And the lineup that Miles was playing with at this time is like just incredible with Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter and Tony Williams. It's fantastic. The only reason it's classic and not goated is because I just think everything about In a Silent Way got even better with Bitches Brew. Bitches Brew is one of the most mind-bending albums I ever listened to. My first time hearing this, I don't think I've ever been as mind blown as listening to Bitches Brew for the first time. Like I still don't even know what this album is. It's hypnotic. It's chaotic. It's dark. It's evil. It's drills its way into my head. Just the drums, the opening cymbal from Pharaoh's Dance, just like classic. I hear 5 seconds of that cymbal, those drums, and I'm like, one of the greatest albums of all time. Oh my god. All right, time to kill a lot of notoriety here. Sufjan, Illinois. What are you doing here? All right. For my listening personally, this ain't my vibe. Sufjan is not my vibe. This is some Disney-ass sounding music. I can get behind, he's skilled as a composer, as a lyricist, as a songwriter, everything like that, but just the end product, this is some Disney-ass music, my guy. I cannot vibe with this. This is saccharine beyond belief. That I can't. It like burns my ears to listen to it. And with that, I'll just take Carrie and Lowell up here too. I'll throw it one tier above, actually. I don't find Carrie and Lowell as offensive to my ears, but it's still not much better. It's not much of a difference. It's a little more raw. It's very emotional and sad. I can understand why people would put it way up here, but that ain't me, bro. Sufjan is not my vibe. Godspeed, F sharp, A sharp, infinity. I'm gonna throw it. I'm gonna throw it. Probably, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna throw it in the great. I've heard it more recently than Skinny Fists, but I think I like it more than Skinny Fists. It's a little more raw. It's got kind of a cowboy mystique to it. I could ride into the sunset listening to F sharp, A sharp, infinity. Classic. Boom, 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 boom. Microphones, Glow Part 2. Classic, super classic. Also one of the greatest indie records of all time. Magical. Listen to this shit on the mountains around the pine trees. See how you feel after that, huh? Introducing DJ Shadow. Oh, this is so classic. It's so classic. It's appropriate for every vibe, no matter what you're doing, where you are, and who's listening. Introducing is always the friggin' vibe. Marquee Moon Television, goated. 100% goated. I mean, one of the greatest guitar albums of all time. The band, just the way the band plays together is so tight. The title track, Marquee Moon, is breathtaking, and they did it all in the first take. Are you kidding me? It's incredible. It's exquisite. I love it. It's the greatest album ever created by four guys that look like Reddit moderators. Let's get grungy with it. Nirvana, never mind. It's decent. It's decent. It's got big hits on it. It's super classic and important. But for me, it's just fine. It's not even the best Nirvana. That's gonna go to In Utero over here. Um, I think two Nirvanas in the top 100 and no Soundgarden and no Alice in Chains is insane. Um, Knock one of these off and give me a Super Unknown or give me a Dirt. Both of those albums infinitely better than either of these Nirvana. That being said, In Utero is still a great album. I still appreciate it very much. Death Consciousness, Have a Nice Life, Have a Nice Life. This is a little similar to the soundtracks for The Blind. Not that it's terribly long, it's just there are songs on here that are long and drony and gross sounding that I love. And then there's some other songs that are good, but not as good as that. I would say, for me, Death Consciousness, that's going to go in the D's. It's very D's. I don't know the next time I'll listen to Death Consciousness, but it's D's. Boy, there is a lot of Kanye here. There actually is 3 Kanye now that I'm realizing. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, I think, is highly overrated, personally. It's got some bops, but it's got some flops. I'm going to say it's great, but not the tops, in my opinion. There's like 3, 4 other Kanye albums I like more than that. Um, Late Registration. This is probably his best record, all right? We're going to throw it in classic. I think it's a cut above like everything else. And you know what? I'm moving MDF. And you know what? I'm going to move Twisted Fantasy down to D's because it's not as good as College Dropout, if I'm keeping College Dropout there. Okay, list is getting chahunky. Food by MF Doom. This is such a great, enjoyable listen. This is such a wonderful album. MF Doom is like one of the most creative MCs of all time. It's gone too damn soon. Food's classic, and I'm going to throw Mad Villainy in classic as well. I know Mad Villainy is that bitch for a ton of people. It's not quite on that same tier for me, but it's still like, it's another one that's like anytime, anywhere, anyone I'm with, like throw on Mad Villainy. Mad Villainy is always the vibe. Boom, Igor, Tyler, maybe my favorite hip-hop album of all time. I know it's not purely rap, but it is purely a masterpiece that is in every top 100, in my opinion. And the crazy thing is, I'm fully against recency bias. I think if something has come out in the past if it's come out in the past 5 years, then we need to be harshly analyzing if it's going to be in an all-time list like this. Igor, no apprehension whatsoever. Easily top 100. Easily. An example that is not that thing that we seriously need to evaluate. Ants from Up There by Black Country New Road. What is this? What are you doing here? You don't belong here. This is like, I'd rather listen to either of these other two in the bottom tier above Ants from Up There. This album infuriates me. It's so bad. It's just so bad. They sound like a bunch of talk wannabes, and I can't stand the vocalists. His vocals, I don't like at all, and his lyrics are just cringy as all get out. Oh my god. The stupid line about the crumbs in the bed. Holy shit. This is some serious, like, 14-year-old, this is so deep level lyricism that everybody just unanimously ran with, and I don't understand how. I guess I'm definitely on the outside, y'all, but I don't get it with that one. Closer, never been clear on that. Joy Division. I'm gonna say it's probably as good as Unknown Pleasures. Just as enjoyable. I'll put it right next to it. Let's get some Dylan in here, y'all. Let's get down to the Dylan train, okay? Blonde on Blonde, very fun. Very fun album to listen to. It's kind of kooky, and I kind of like that because everybody's getting stoned, dog. It's great. Blood on the Tracks, also gonna go in the great. Um, uh, Considered one of his best. Not gonna argue with that. I would probably take a Bringing It All Back Home above Blood on the Tracks, but it's still a great album. And then Highway 61, it's that bitch. It is that good. All right, Tombstone Blues is such a bop. It goes so hard. It's so good. But there's so many like emotional, touching songs on here. Ballad of a Thin Man, Like a Rolling Stone, just amazing. Super classic for a good reason. One of the most important artists of all time in Bob Dylan. Outcast, Aquemini, classic. This is my favorite Outcast album. Outcast, one of the best rap duos of all time. Sorry, Miss Jackson. Um, Metallica, Ride the Lightning. I'm gonna say is classic. You can really throw a dart with the first four Metallica albums in my book. Ride the Lightning, maybe a little more inconsistent than like Master of Puppets or Kill 'Em All, but I mean it's ultra classic. It's Metallica. Come on now. And let's get Master of Puppets. I'm gonna throw that in classic too. I mean these are classic personal favorites of mine. I've been listening to these albums since I was a teenager. Nowadays, are there other bands like Sepultura and Megadeth I'm going to pick over Metallica, but I got nostalgia with Metallica. They're ultra classic. They're one of the first metal bands most people are going to hear, and that's great because they're extremely high quality. Yes, Close to the Edge. Come on now. We're talking one of the greatest rock albums of all time here, my guy. Close to the Edge is a masterpiece. I think if you are allergic to prog, if you avoid it like the plague, listen to Close to the Edge. I'm not saying it's going to change your mind, but it will definitely make a big impression on you. The Downward Spiral, I really, really loved this album when I was like teens, early 20s. Maybe don't vibe with it as much as I used to, but I still have high respect and still very much enjoy it when I'm in the mood for this type of a downer ass album. Karma by Pharoah Sanders. Pharoah Sanders, he's one of those goated friggin' artists. Pharoah Sanders has been getting a lot of love from me this year. He's one of the greatest jazz artists of all time. He really picked up the mantle of Coltrane after Coltrane passed away. Right now, I'm gonna throw it into classic. I know it could be in goated. I know it could be top 100 easy. But for right now, while I'm still on the journey, I'm going to leave him right there. I'm probably going to... Pharoah Sanders probably getting a video this year. Mezzanine by Massive Attack. This album is the definition of cool. The cruising down the highway at night, kind of cool. And you're wearing your sunglasses even though it's dark out, kind of cool. Great. Jeff Buckley, Grace. This is D's. I can't pin down exactly... how I feel about this album, to be honest with you. I find it extremely enjoyable. There's some peak songs on here, but I can't say I love it, personally. The Hendrix debut. I'm going to do exactly what I said I'd do with it. It's going right next to Electric Ladyland because they're so close. They're all masterpiece. All right, catch me butchering the name right now, but Club de Esquina by Lo Borges and Milton Nascimento. I think that's what his name is. Don't crucify me for it. I'm sorry. This album is great. This is like a delicious little sampler buffet of all the greatest psych rock sounds of the late 60s and early 70s. Brazil and South America, I believe this is Brazilian, was really hitting it off with this style. This is the first of its kind that I've listened to, but it will not be the last. This is an amazing album. Wonderful. Great album. Oh, hey, Midnight Marauders is here too. I'm gonna say, all right, I know what I said, but I'm gonna throw it in classic. I don't like it quite as much as Low End Theory, but it's so close. It's so close. It's so goated. Talk. Black Country New Road Wishes. Cure Pornography. I'm gonna put it right next to Disintegration. I don't. Two Cure albums seems excessive. All right, I know someone's gonna hate that, but it just seems a bit excessive in my opinion. I think Disintegration is good enough. Since I Left You by the Avalanches. This is such a fun listen, dude. This is like something about like the sample heavy plunderphonic stuff like this, and introducing is that this is an anytime, anywhere, great vibe kind of record. I'm gonna put it in great, just not the tops. It's great. Songs of Leonard Cohen. I'm also going to throw this in great. He's swinging as hard as Dylan on his best day, buddy. And he has such a unique sort of storytelling ability that he really stands apart, even if you're someone listening to it in 2025. Jay Dilla, Donuts, another sample heavy instrumental hip hop classic, right next to Introducing easily. I mean, it's such an easy, enjoyable friggin' listen. Oh, and Intervisions by Stevie Wonder. That's going right next to Songs in the Key of Life, my guy. Intervisions was my first favorite of his, and it's still one of my very favorites. Front to back, perfect, not a miss. Stevie Wonder, one of the greatest artists of all time. Liquid Swords. Oof, we're really getting down to it here. The Concentrated Biz. Liquid Swords, S tier. Maybe even better than the Wu-Tang debut. Jizza Liquid Swords is just peak. I mean, only built for Cuban Links and the Iron Man, they're also like damn near on that tier. But Liquid Swords is maybe my favorite hip hop album of all time. If we're not counting Igor, then it's gonna be Liquid Swords all day, every day. All right, all right. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry. Okay, I know how people feel. I know how they feel. You know what? Okay, fine. I'll throw in Rainbows up to Dece. I'll give it a little spare. Um, I'm just so tired of Radiohead. I'm so tired of hearing about Radiohead. It's just, it's fine. It's whatever. I don't care. But if you're talking top 100 of all time and we need three Radiohead albums, pick one, bro. Pick one. Kid A is cool, is interesting. OK Computer is the classic. In Rainbows is the hipster choice. Pick one. We don't need three. Of all of these multiple bands, of multiple artists with multiple albums in a top 100, Radiohead ain't it, chief. Pick one. The Doors debut. Maybe my favorite. Maybe LA Woman. I don't know. LA Woman. Now, The Doors, I could stand for two on here. Am I right, fellas? The Doors debut, oh, it's probably got to be a friggin' 100 all time. LA Woman would be there right next to it. It's just, it's so many bops. It's one of the greatest rock albums of the 60s. Jim Morrison was the first rock star. They were boundary pushing in every kind of way. So experimental. I mean, The Doors debut has The End on it, and that album came out before The Velvet Underground and Nico. And it was just so far out and so experimental. Jim Morrison, goated. Sweet Trip, Velocity, Design, Comfort. I'm not gonna lie, this album loses my interest every time I'm listening to it. I think Sweet Trip is really nice background music for me personally. I think this album specifically it's just too long. We don't need an hour 15 of this, bro. I'm sorry. Maybe if you cut down a little bit, in my opinion. Okay. Looking at what I got here, I'm gonna actually bump up Slint because I think compared to these other albums, I've at least gone back to the Slint album like 5 or 6 times, so I enjoy it some bit more. But yeah, the Sweet Trip, not for me, bro. If I'm going electronic, this would not be. I mean, we got No Boards of Canada in the top 100. I'll take that any day over Sweet Trip, personally. And then finally, Death Symbolic, the one death metal album that non-metal fans listen to because it's in the RYM Top 100 and they have no context for it. And then they're like, why is this in the top 100? I don't get it, bro. This is goated. It's because it is top 100 material all day, every day. Genuinely, though, it is just one of my favorite albums of all time. It's not just one of the best metal albums of all time. It's just one of the greatest albums of all time. This album is just like super important to me. It's not just musically a breathtaking listen, but lyrically, there's just so much to chew on here. There's so much depth. This album is not your typical metal lyrical affair. This is some existential, like philosophical level shit. I mean, Chuck Schuldiner, he's one of the greatest artists that have graced this planet that he has left from far too soon. All right, well, there you have it. This was a lot of fun. If we enjoy tier lists, I'm going to think of some kookier, something a little funnier. But I think this is pretty solid. There's ones maybe relatively newer to me that I would change with more listens, like the LaBorge's album or maybe the Elliott Smith, but this is solid. This is solid. I wouldn't change anything out of the goated top 100 for sure. And got to throw some shade to somebody, and who better to get it than Black Country New Road, Daft Punk, and Sufjan Stevens. But anyways, hope this was enjoyable. Hope y'all were entertained by it. If you got an idea for a tier list you think would be entertaining, then throw it my way, and maybe I'll do it. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.